What is going on, everybody? In today's video, we're going to be running through a 12-team full PPR mock for the 2025 fantasy football season, drafting from the 1.6 overall. We'll be going through a strategy that I think will help you guys draft an amazing 2025 fantasy football team from the 1.6. We'll be rolling with one quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, a tight end spot, two flex spots, and five bench spots as well. If you guys are new to the channel, this is all we do here all year long. Free fantasy football content, redraft dynasty, and best ball. If you guys are into that, be sure to subscribe on the way in. Without further ado, let's get today's mock going. All right, so from the 1.6 overall, I still think obviously you're going to start the draft with a great player. And I always just tell you guys, when you're kind of in this range right here in the middle, just go into your draft kind of understanding that obviously you're going to start your draft with a running back or wide receiver, and really kind of identify 2 to 3 guys who are just your guy in that range, and then start your draft overall with a running back or wide receiver, and then we'll kind of go from there. I know that was very self-explanatory, but just don't freak out here. You're starting your draft with one or of the 2 skill position players, and you're going to get a stud no matter what. Don't overthink it. Whoever you like in this range, go with them, okay? Bijan Robinson, generally speaking, I haven't seen fall this often to the 1.6 in drafts. But of course, as always, best player available, you're going to take that player right. If Bijan's there at the 1.6, I am smashing the draft button. And this kind of puts us in a position where we could start this draft like with a double hero running back strategy, because I think if you start your draft with Bijan Robinson, there's a lot of really good value, kind of mid to late round in terms of the running back position. We could also go with the wide receiver here and kind of do a bounce back strategy, what I like to call a bounce back strategy, where you start with a running back, then the next round you're taking a wide receiver. You're repeating that pattern for at least the first 6 rounds of the draft. But I think starting off with Bijan and having Christian McCaffrey here on the board, as we see Bucky Irving kind of going earlier in this draft, I think it's just too good to pass up. But I also really like some of these next tier running backs, so to speak, and Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams, and Chase Brown. But I don't know that you would necessarily have to take any of those guys at the 2.7. I think it's perfectly okay if you wanted to, but I think Ladd McConkey would at least be the wide receiver that I would be willing to take, maybe over some of those running backs. Josh Jacobs, very close, but C-Mac, way too much upside. I get it. Injury risk, awful, disappointing you here last year, all that stuff, I know. But if Christian McCaffrey's sitting there at the 2.7 and I can start my draft with 2 absolute stud running backs with a ton of upside, and Bijan Robinson and Christian McCaffrey, then double hero running back, it is the way we are going here. I don't mind Chase Brown here whatsoever, but I just think going out of the gate with 3 running backs in a row is a little bit too much, especially in a double flex format, which has become so popular, as well as, a PPR format. So T. Higgins, a wide receiver that I just love in this range. So much upside, over 18 fantasy points per game last year. Defense is still awful. Joe Burrow's there. Jamar Chase is always on the field, opens things up for Higgins. I just love him in the 3rd round. Big upside pick there. Some other good wide receivers like Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., even Mike Evans and Devontae Adams, and even DJ Moore that I kind of like in that range. But Higgins has just been that guy for me so far in the offseason. Then looking here, I mean, there are still some good running backs. I'm not even looking at quarterback to tight end, at this point in the draft. But I would just once again go with the best available wide receiver. We'll take Rashee Rice here. I'm okay with Metcalf, Sutton, even Zay Flowers, even Devonta Smith. But I like, what Rashee Rice offers here at the 4.7, being the wide receiver 1, who all reports are indicating is going to be healthy to start this season. Wide receiver 1 for the Chiefs. I think that offense is going to be a lot more fantasy friendly in 2025. Once again, we can look at the running back position here, but I just think that this tier is, it just doesn't scream value to me. And I think that we're going to be hunting for more guys like DeAndre Swift, Brian Robinson, guys in those lower tiers as this draft goes on, because we started with so much emphasis at the running back position with this particular strategy. So once again, I would go with the best available wide receiver. We'll take Devonta Smith. I love Devonta Smith as like a wide receiver 3. You just know what you're going to get week in and week out when you draft Devonta Smith. Another solid season last year. I know he missed some time, but overall, this is still a player who has average double-digit fantasy points per game 3 years in a row. Solid stats. Full PPR. Love him there, but I do really like Jameson Williams there if you want a little bit more upside. I like Xavier Worthy. I don't know if I would go Xavier Worthy if I already drafted Rashee Rice, but Nonetheless, Devonta Smith, perfect wide receiver 3 for this squad. Then once again here, we're just going back to the wide receiver position. We want to fill in this additional flex spot with a solid overall player. And I really like Chris Godwin here. I think you could reach for Calvin Ridley, maybe Jerry Jeudy or Roma Dunze are your guys in this type of range. That's fine, but I'm high on Chris Godwin, that Buccaneers offense. I think we're kind of getting a good discount on Chris Godwin right now. So far through the offseason, the injury reports are positive. They're hopeful he'll play week 1. Maybe he misses a little bit of time to start the season. Nonetheless, that offense is going to throw the ball a ton this year. They're going to be in the red zone a lot. I like Chris Godwin, who was a top 5 fantasy football wide receiver last year before he went down with the injury in week 7. So some good wide receivers available here who I think are kind of sleepers, like Khalil Shakir and Jacoby Myers, but I want to go ahead and take that RB3, and this draft kind of worked out perfectly in my eyes, where we're able to take DeAndre Swift as an RB3 after going double hero running back. DeAndre Swift over 12.5 fantasy points per game last year. He is the sole running back on this roster right now. They've improved that offensive line in the offseason. Ben Johnson's now the head coach. That offense is going to be much better. And Caleb Williams, sophomore season. They still have good pass catchers on this team. I love DeAndre Swift as an RB3 in this range. Then we just want to kind of look here. Who's the best available player as we've gotten our first bench player? The flex spots filled out, our starting running backs and starting wide receivers filled out. Quarterback, kind of in a lower tier. Tight end, I'm completely okay if you wanted to go like Evan Ingram or maybe reach for David Njoku, at least based on ADP here. But I think you just kind of want to look across the board and go with the best available player. Now, running back is starting to thin out a little bit, but we have the most upside on this roster at the running back position. So I don't mind Stephon Diggs here. I really like Jawan Jennings or Ricky Pearsall, and I certainly don't mind Jaden Reed or Matthew Golden. We'll just kind of go with an upside pick in Jawan Jennings. I'm totally okay with any of those players, but I think, once again, keep the emphasis in these full PPR double flex formats at the wide receiver position is what I always prefer to do. And then, once again, here, we're just kind of looking across the board. I think we can hold off at running back because the guys that I like as this draft will go on, guys like Tajay Spears and Rachaad White will probably last another round. I don't think we need to go quarterback yet. I know that the quarterback value right now doesn't look great, but we'll talk about that in just a second. I'll just go in and take a tight end off the board in David Njoku. Evan Ingram almost fell to us. I would have preferred Ingram there, but I'm okay with Njoku. I've got them very, very close in terms of overall ranking, so tight end is out of the way. And yeah, in terms of quarterbacks, like, one thing that's a disadvantage is when you're drafting with a computer here, it's not a great read in terms of the quarterback position because, like, these teams where they went Jalen Hurts or Jaden Daniels, they're not going to draft Dak Prescott or Justin Herbert in the 10th. When you guys are drafting with real people, you'll see better quarterback value. And I always kind of emphasize that because, generally speaking, I go with late round quarterbacks. So we'll see what happens there. And let's go ahead and take Rachaad White off of the board here. He's a player that I like as a bench running back. Amazing handcuff, but also had a lot of standalone value last year. Plenty of double-digit performances for Rachaad White last year. Maybe the upside's not as high because of Bucky Irving, but he's still going to have a role in that offense in his contract season. And then once again here, we're just kind of looking across the board. We have 2 bench spots to fill. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of reach against ADP and take J.K. Dobbins because I can tell you guys right now, J.K. Dobbins is a really hot name in fantasy mocks overall. He's not going at his current ADP on Sleeper whatsoever. So be prepared to draft him a little bit earlier. And you might even have to draft him like the 9th or 10th round. So I could have waited, and probably still landed him because we're drafting with a computer, but Dobbins is a player that I'm perfectly okay with taking off of the board there. And yeah, quarterback, got hit really hard in this draft. A lot of times, even guys like Drake May, Fields, and McCarthy are still available there. I'm not going to freak out drafting against a computer here. We're going to end up with a quarterback, and it's going to be perfectly fine. But I think you could go ahead and take a wide receiver that you prefer here. Rashid Shaheed is who I will go with. I really like him as like a late round upside type selection. He was actually putting together very good games outside of whatever happened in week 3 against Philly before he did suffer that injury in week 6. But look, In games he started last year, he still gave you double digits in 4 out of 6 before he did unfortunately go down for the year. So quarterback situation is shaky there. I get it, but I like Shaheed, especially as the kind of like final selection at wide receiver for this team. But I do like some other names at wide receiver who were available there as well. So yeah, we'll take a quarterback here. We'll just go with Tua. I do think he's being a little bit undervalued. If he's fully healthy and we get more stretches, kind of like what we saw last year between weeks 11 and week 14, like I think Tua is perfectly fine. These are the actual numbers. Sorry, it's highlighting the standard number there. But nonetheless, you're going to be able to land a better quarterback in these strategies that I'm putting together for you guys, because when you draft with real people right now, quarterback value is completely skewed compared to what you're getting with the computer. I mean, if you drafted Burrow in the 4th, you're not drafting Caleb Williams in the 10th, and you guys can look across the board and see a couple examples. We know in single quarterback leagues, people are very rarely coming out of their drafts with 2 quarterbacks, or they're not going to be drafting these quarterbacks as early as they were in today's mock. But nonetheless, there is the final team. We got Tua at quarterback, David Njoku at tight end, Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey right out of the gate going double hero running back. Great values there. Rashad White on the bench with J.K. Dobbins and DeAndre Swift. Perfectly happy with that backfield. In terms of running backs, what we have together for the running back room, a lot of upside, but 2 absolute studs in our starting lineup. Then in terms of the wide receivers, T. Higgins, Rashee Rice, Devonta Smith, Chris Godwin, Jawan Jennings, and Rashid Shaheed on the bench for some upside. So be perfectly happy with this team at this point in the offseason. If you guys have not watched any of the videos for draft selections 1.1 to 1.5, those are live on the channel, and I'll link them down below. And I'll continue to make one of these videos every day for the rest of June. Then I'll do it in July and August as well, so you guys are as prepared as possible for the upcoming 2025 fantasy football season. And don't forget, guys, we are doing live streams once a week where you guys can join our mock drafts and draft with the community and see a little bit more of a competitive draft overall. So make sure you guys are keeping your eyes peeled for our weekly live streams. And as usual, if you guys are new to the channel, this is all we do here all year long: free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. If you guys are into that, be sure to subscribe on the way out and drop me a comment if you guys have any fantasy football questions whatsoever, and I'll get back to you. With that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening, and remember, you saw it here on The Catch.